of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Welcome to the show, motherfuckers. I am fresh out of Guantanamo Bay. My name is Jake Flores. This is probably the first time you're listening to this show. A lot of you fuckers. This is my podcast, Pod Damn America. I have with me Anders Lee.
Anders Lee here.
And Alex Patak.
I have never been to Guantanamo Bay. How did it feel being represented by the Occupy Wall Street Twitter account, Jake?
Did that happen?
Yeah, they quote tweeted your article and were like, not all heroes wear capes.
Oh, cool. They did a basic tweet at me.
Yeah, I was doing impressions to my girlfriend all day of just whose streets? Our streets. Oh, there's fucking broken glass.
I'm really bad at that part of activism, like the chants and shit. And I wrote a bit about it. I did a bit for a while about how my heart's there, but I just don't like chanting and dancing and marching and stepping. It feels very weird.
You don't like the pageantry.
Yeah. And then I did a show with this guy, Gordon Baker Bone, this very funny comic in New York, who's a black dude, and he had a bit that was the other half of the bit. He was like, as a black dude, I notice white people at these shows that get uncomfortable, so we should make chants that are, in more of a rhythm that they can understand. And then it was I can't remember even the bit, but it was doing a chant that was to the sound of a fucking, I don't know, what is the whitest music ever, a Steely Dan song or some shit.
The ska concert we're going to after this recording.
Yeah.
The free ska concert that we've just been alerted to.
Yeah, Skank Fest, unofficial. It's actually about skanking.
What if everybody, instead of doing a chant at a rally, people just rolled their eyes in unison?
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Very subtle, but we're mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is what the show is like.
Yeah. There's a lot to get through today. I have not podcasted since I had a run-in with the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security edition, that part of it specifically. So if you came to this show from Chapo or something else I did this week, and you already heard the story, just a heads up, there's just no way I cannot talk about it on my own show, so we're going to get into that a little bit, maybe skip close to the end when we start talking about other stuff, but it's just it's got to happen. I got to tell my pals about what it was like not getting arrested.
When you were on the Spanish news covering this, did they make you speak Spanish?
Okay, yeah, so I had all these people hit me up this week, and I've done this interview a million times, and one of them was New York One Noticias. Which is,
notices.
Yeah, well, news. And
What kind of notice we talking about? They notice things, or they send out you're on notice?
Burn notice.
Yeah, you were on burn notice in Mexico.
Burn notice talking about this issue.
Noticias caliente. I don't know. So
no.
You want Spanish word I love? Sacabuntas.
Amazing.
Means pencil sharpener. Should have said that, in case you didn't.
I love to say cebolla. So I don't speak Spanish very well at all. I'm third generation Mexican. My family purposely assimilated, to protect los niños, and then that didn't understand that America was going to turn into a thing where now it's you don't speak Spanish. You're really, you're a horrible person. You're pretty much a horrible person no matter what you're doing in America. Yeah. So
one of us.
So I'm a half Mexican, and that's the part of has to be addressed in this whole issue, because I was talking about ICE and all this stuff. But I did an interview on TV with the local TV network in Spanish, and so they hit me up and they were like, do you speak Spanish? I told them no. You know, like a little bit. I can like understand a little bit, whatever. And so we did the interview in English, and at the end they were like, okay, well, let's try to, you know, like, do you want to try? You know, do you want to like do some clips or whatever of you speaking in Spanish? And I was like, yeah, of course, I don't give a shit.
Are they just going to use this for the bloopers?
I think maybe. I don't know.
I think these were undercover cops.
They have you say incriminating shit in Spanish.
They were grammar Nazis, but they were the ICE version of, I don't know.
They weren't real Nazis who broke down your door last
That's
weekend.
what's going to happen when the left takes over. You're going to get your door broken down for telling grammatically incorrect jokes.
Yeah, it's ICE, but they just enforce like your, and your.
Yeah.
Or if you listen to the wrong podcast, that'll be a big thing for them.
Yeah. So we ran through a bunch of lines in my terrible Spanish. I can actually speak, like, I can pronounce shit pretty well, but then, like, I was doing, like, 3 sentences at a time, and it's, like, it makes my brain just all gum up.
Ooh.
But it was very funny. Because
you knew what you were saying, though.
Yeah. Like, it would make sense the more they just taught me Spanish for 5 seconds, and then I'm an idiot, so I forgot.
I'm just looking out for you.
But, yeah, so if you're listening to this, that would have aired, what is today, Friday night?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Viernes.
There you go. I can't wait for Sábado Gigante. Remember that show?
Hell yeah.
That show fucking ruled, and I had no idea what was going on.
All right, so
let's
break it
was
down.
that on El Segundo?
And I was on Telemundo, later to become Univision.
I have nothing to add. Let's break down the main course for the day, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what happened on Cinco de Mayo, which was last Saturday. Sábado. For Anders. I don't know why for Anders. So on Saturday,
Anders here to learn.
I was doing.
I just came here to speak Spanish. This whole time I've been trying to learn Spanish from Jake, and this podcast is something else.
This is the first time I've ever heard Jake speak Spanish. I've known him for a
This is the audio books that you accidentally order when you're trying to order books on tape to how to learn Spanish. It just turns into a leftist idiot, like a Homer Simpson, that one episode.
Right. We teach them through Revolution, but after the revolution, everyone will just know Spanish. It's actually racist if you don't.
But the night of Cinco de Mayo.
Morning of. So I woke up.
No, but I was saying that before that, I was out with you at our friend's engagement party.
Yes.
And if your morning was anything like my morning, you were in no state to speak with anyone.
You were tore the fuck up, and it was very funny.
Yeah.
You are like already a human cartoon, so you drunk is very fun.
I can't say. I apparently missed a fight over a sweatshirt, but that's a story for a different podcast.
Oh, you missed it. It was badass. So I'll get to that in a minute. Well, here's my day, right? So I woke up. I'll tell you about it in a second. I woke up and looked at the internet, and you have a million notifications, and then the news is like everything's terrible, and I did my morning routine, right, which is think about everything, crack a few dumb jokes online.
What time is it?
I think I was off that day, so probably like noon to 1, something like that.
Peak hours.
According to the New York Post, Flores cracked the joke at 2 p.m. So that's when I cracked it or whatever. But we'll get to that in a minute. But so it was Cinco de Mayo, and every Cinco de Mayo, everyone argues about cultural appropriation online, and I kind of think it's dumb. I don't think it's it's not real, but I think that what's going on with like the clickbait industry is that it's profitable to generate outrage, and I say that because it's mostly white people getting mad at other white people about this thing. It's like
God.
It's
I fucking hate when white people get mad at other white people for that shit.
Right, we should be united.
Yeah, but
One
not
race.
that. But I also hate when white people say that. I also hate that as well.
Like I think it's playing on a certain guilt, and
a good example is that Chinese dress controversy from a week or two ago. Did you guys see that? Where
No.
It was a white 18-year-old wore like a Chinese dress to prom, and then
But like it was made in China.
I don't know.
Or
It's like a
how-
most
traditional
clothes
dress.
are Chinese.
It's like a
Is
traditional
that
dress or
appropriation
something.
now if you wear something made in China?
And then everyone in the world tried to get her, and then she was like,
fired from her high school.
I'm not sorry. And then China chimed in like a week later and was like, we don't understand what's happening.
That's the thing.
Here we are.
I remember talking to our friend Michael, mutual friend, who was dating a Taiwanese young woman. And
Where's this story going?
Well, I remember asking them, because we were talking about this in like Halloween costumes, and he was like explaining to her, because she's from Taiwan, and she's like, he was explaining the Halloween costume controversy, people dressing up like Pocahontas when they don't have native extraction or whatever, and I asked them, like, what would happen if I went to Taiwan and just did yellow face and walked around and pretended to be Asian, and they were like, I don't know, it'd probably be fine. Like, people wouldn't get mad at you.
Well, because there's not a history of minstrel shows in.
True.
Like, there's all
No,
this other shit going on.
Well,
there.
you don't know Anders has
but
been
just
running his own
but
minstrel
cultural
shows.
appropriation in general doesn't have to be a bad. Yeah.
I kind of take some issues with the concept of the outrage over it, because I think it's generated by clicks, and it's being misused when someone's profiting off of it. And there's an extent to which, like, who hates cultural appropriation? Richard Spencer. He thinks all the cultures should stay by themselves, and there is like this concept of cultural exchange.
Right.
I mean, all the best food comes from
Fusion
mashups.
Yeah.
And the best music.
Yeah, girl talk is cultural.
Girl talk is the
appropriation.
best music.
And the best colors, frankly.
been
Brown,
downhill.
we can agree, is the best color. If you mix them all together, you
Purple.
get, the
Get
most
red and
beautiful
blue in a
one, yeah.
room. See what happens?
That's fantastic. They don't like to be around each other, though. No, okay. So the thing is, like, whatever. I have these opinions, and it's like an endless conversation. And cultural appropriation, also, this thing that happens every year on like Cinco de Mayo and Day of the Dead, is also an endless conversation, which is why I'm like a little suspicious of this whole outrage industry, because like, if this was such a huge problem, don't you think we might have fixed it, or something would have happened? It seems like just every year everyone's like, oh, now it's the day we get mad again. And we're just having this like endless fucking thing about it. And I'm totally down to have the conversation. It's definitely in poor taste when some people do it. But in sometimes we have situations where people overcorrect and they're just like woke and they're like yelling at someone who like, you don't know people's lives, there's plenty of reasons you could be doing one thing or the other. It's just fucking complicated. My whole point when I was thinking about this, though, was that, like, this is just a silly thing for everyone to be arguing over while ICE just exists.
This is aesthetic while there are material problems at hand.
Yeah, it's
You
like,
were trying to inject praxis into the debate.
Well, I was also writing a joke, which is
Lethal
the other
praxis
thing here,
injection.
which is where, like, you
A
gotta
joke,
go.
you say.
Yeah, like I was just letting my wheels spin because I got a tour coming up and I'm working on new material, and I started thinking about all this, and then I started to get away from thinking like this is the truth and towards like, all right, let's make this funny, because I think like
It's
that's
so interesting hearing you break down your motivations for a tweet point by point. Because people really just put whatever they fucking thought of in the last 2 seconds on a piece of paper and send it into the internet, and that's 99% of Twitter.
Well, I wouldn't have ever thought about this again had not what happened the next day happened,
You should say the tweet, though, because it was really funny.
Okay, so the premise of the joke, having all that led into it, so you understand where I'm coming from, who I am,
As
and
an
all this
artist.
shit, is as an artist, is like, okay, so everyone's arguing about cultural appropriation. Meanwhile, ICE exists. That seems kind of like outweighed. But everyone shut up. I've got a solution, fixes both problems at the same time. And the solution is, how about white people should be allowed to culturally appropriate to the degree that they help abolish ICE and help fight against ICE, right? So, for example, say you're a white person and, let's say you fucking murder an ICE agent. Now you can wear a sombrero and no one can get mad at you, right? Pretty cool, right? Let's say you kill another one, 2 ICE agents. Now you can wear a poncho. You start to build an outfit, right? And on and on and on. And they get the more points you rack up, the more offensive things
I
you're
like the
allowed
part
to do.
about the lowriders.
Yeah.
Because I've always wanted one.
I know, but it would feel weird, right?
It would be.
But if you banked enough karma, everyone would be like, "That's Alex. He fucking killed 25 ICE agents. That's cool that he has that lowrider now, right?"
I won't say anything to him. He's murdered a lot of people.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. Like some members of the federal government, I also didn't get that this was a joke and I went out and did all that shit.
Yeah, you're gonna get me
And
thrown
not
in jail.
only, yeah, well, white privilege. I'm actually have not been apprehended.
He was given a promotion at work
Yes, and
for showing initiative.
Right. I have been called out online though for my folks can't see it at home, but my dreads. And,
You have the least dreadable hair I have ever seen in my entire life.
Just your voice too. You guys want to smoke some marijuana?
Irie.
Yeah.
I'm a Claude.
Going in a terrible direction.
Rastafari here.
Anyway, so you cracked a joke on the internet. That was 3 tweets long, which is hard to get some success with. That's almost a thread.
Yeah, it was a
Irregular
into a thread.
format.
And I just threw that shit on there because, like, you know, I mean, they asked me this question at one point, like, why'd you put it on
Wait,
there?
don't skip ahead yet. So you put the tweet up.
Sure. Okay.
Anything else happened that day?
What we remember the first like?
Okay, nothing happened. A bunch of people thought it was funny. I literally, like, nobody online got back at me in any negative way.
Rogov shared it.
Yeah, like, people thought it was funny.
It got unverified.
Known
possibly.
terrorist, Rogov Mehta.
We're all going to die.
Yeah, this is kind of legitimately a scary thing we're talking about. Anyway, so that was Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So nobody even really went like, "Oh, excuse me," and it's weird because I expected that to happen because there are a lot of like, you know, I interact with people that don't agree with my politics and stuff online, but like, it was. I think it was. I think it was. Fuck. I stand by my bid. I think it was pretty funny. You know.
God bless.
And it was also like just so ridiculous that like who's gonna.
It
take that
clearly
seriously.
wasn't like a threat.
Right. And that's sort of a theme of what we're going to get into because, like, the only people that really raised an eyebrow weren't like, this is bad. They were like, you're going to get in trouble, which is the
Right.
fucking stupid narc panopticon society we're living in. Oh, you're going to get in trouble, you know?
Right.
So nothing happened. I went on with my day, went out and saw a great show. I saw Turnstile. Me and Raghav went. Hardcore band out of Baltimore, I think. Great fucking show. Then we went to Jeremy's engagement party.
I saw you in a haze for a number of hours that cannot be recounted.
You had like pretzels and stuff just coming out of your head.
Did I have pretzels?
You let me eat some of your pretzel when I walked in here. It was great.
Alyssa, did I have pretzels?
Yeah, you had a big pretzel.
Yeah. Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, you enjoyed it. You just don't remember it.
I fucking love pretzels.
Yeah. Well, it
They're
happened,
soft.
baby. So then this it was a weird night. I'm not even going to get into the fucking sweater thing, but big fight broke out of her sweater. It was very funny. So then
There's no time.
Yeah, there's not enough time. Hung out, had honestly a great Saturday night. Went home, 4 a.m, which is last call here. Fell asleep on my own couch right over there, watching a movie or something, drinking a Bud Light margarita.
Yeah. Sponsor of the show.
Yeah.
Was it lime or strawberry?
Strawberry is my favorite one.
I also am a big
It's
fan.
real good. So
Tastes like the weekend.
I was going hard, and so I fell asleep, and now I need to give a little context about what happened next because I live in a vampire house. I live in this weird loft that has all this goth art all over the walls and like mannequin parts and shit because I had this roommate who made all this shit and moved out, right?
There are 5 mannequin heads next to us as we record.
There's also
some in gas masks.
Gas mask.
yeah,
Got a mirror
all
frame with no
The
mirror.
hallways look like what you would imagine the final location in True Detective where they have all the kids looks like.
We're also sitting over a pentagram.
Yeah.
Right now.
We are!
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah, dude. That's how we summon content.
And we all I always leave here with like 7 tattoos.
Yeah, and then they disappear magically. It's henna. I'm giving him henna tattoos.
Using henna magic, my tattoos disappear.
So the other thing about this building is that like it's falling apart, right? Like one of my windows fell out the other day. There's leaking pipes, there's buckets catching the leaking pipe water, all this shit, right? So there's this repair guy I call all the time, and he just shows up randomly, and if I'm here, I let him in. And so that's why the next thing that happened, because I have to clarify, after this happened, I tweeted like, "Oh, hey, fucking Homeland Security just busted down my door," and a lot of people have since kind of scrutinized the New York Post for one. Oh, you didn't get your door busted in.
Yeah.
You were visited, and it's
real
like,
journalists
yeah,
over
yeah.
at the New York Post.
So the thing is, I woke up, I heard them banging on my fucking door like really loud over and over and over again, and I thought it was the fucking guy that fixes the pipes. So I got up. I've been awake for 5 seconds. I stumble to the door. I go to open it to see what the fuck he wants. Boom. 4 Homeland Security agents. They're all holding badges. One of them goes, Homeland Security, right?
Do they have like the Mortal Kombat hats? Like the like straight blue brim hats?
Everyone keeps
No
asking
sleeves.
me specifics about what they were wearing for some reason. Everyone wants to know if they were wearing the sunglasses, and they weren't.
I'm just going to picture Sonya from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. She was just doing backflips and shit.
She pulled your spine out.
Yeah.
That is who Trump would put in charge of ICE.
Yeah.
Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat. It's not a real person. Yeah. So I opened the door, and so what happened next, I think I've talked to some lawyers and some activist types about it, and I think what happened is, since I opened the door and they put like a foot in the door legally because they make the fucking laws, they're like, now they're allowed to be inside.
Vampire rules.
They operate like vampires.
And you live in a vampire house.
Makes perfect sense.
So they're more welcome than ever.
It's all coming together. Yeah, so I brandished my cross. Oh my god, that's why he didn't like the cross. Oh my god. So they come in, and I'm really groggy, and they go, did you say something online about ICE? And I go, oh, I fucking get what's going on here. Because this happened to Nick Mullen like 2 years ago.
The FBI,
The
right?
FBI showed up, and everyone thought it was over a joke because, there's this concept of, like, swatting where, like, you report someone to, like, the SWAT team or the FBI or whatever, like, as a prank, and they show up. They're like, oh, shit, oh, my God, it's hilarious because you misused a fucking,
Yeah. This cost $1 million to ruin my podcast.
A couple years ago, someone got killed from swatting. So that's, everyone kind of, but Nick's like this insanely high-level troll, so everyone's kind of assuming, oh, you pissed off another troll, and that's what happened, right? But in his case, what actually happened was, what's funny about him is that he says all this crazy shit online, and the only things he ever gets in trouble for are these really mundane, like, posts. Like, and so the thing that he got in trouble for was his, like, uncle thought he was like gonna join ISIS or something because he was talking about ISIS, and he just was describing like the definition of the word caliphate.
He knew a lot about the Middle East.
Well, you can just Google what is a caliphate and just figure it out. But his uncle was like,
Wow.
something's going on here. I better report him to the FBI.
Here you are on your podcast encouraging people to look up what caliphate means.
Yeah, the first step to fighting the enemy is not knowing anything about it. Turn the lights off and punch in the dark.
Let a law into your heart.
Yeah. So I kind of immediately am like, oh, that shit's happening to me. Okay, I get it. What's going on? But it's also quite jarring to have your home, invaded by the fucking Department of Homeland Security.
When I asked what time this happened before, I meant like this part.
Oh, this happened at like 9 in the morning.
Okay.
Which is, some people are usually awake by then. But
You've been asleep for like 4.5 hours.
yeah.
Try 4.5 minutes. Or
4.5 minutes?
More like 5 a.m. All right. That's a come down joke. Who cares? So yeah, I've been awake for like a fucking minute, and I'm off that day, and I'm like, oh, I'm delirious. And so something that kind of happened is that I think that part of what they were trying to do was intimidate me, but it went wrong for them on a lot of levels, like, because I'm not a normal person. So, like, on the one hand, yeah, they can't. I mean, like, I was so hungover, and I'm having such a fucking crazy week to begin with that, like, all this bad shit happens to me. Like, I locked my bike up outside the DMV, and a fucking crazy Trini, like, security guard, like, stole my bike from me the other day, like, snapped my lock, and then when I tried to get it back from him, he was like, this is my private property. And I was like, this is the DMV. This is the definition of public property. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, private property, you know, and then he started yelling Bible shit at me. And I was like, thou shalt not steal, motherfucker. And he was like, thou shalt not violate private property. I was like, that's not in the Bible.
Woo!
You know, so this is just my life, right?
We gotta get that guy on.
Yeah.
He has a podcast already.
Yeah.
Patreon's blowing up.
This is private property.
Him and Tim Dillon have a podcast where they talk about private property. Yeah.
Tim Dillon is going to the DMV.
So I'm kind of just used to shit like this happening, and so I think that they thought they were gonna have this like flashbang, like psychological, you know, blitzkrieg effect, and I was just like, here we go again, you know. And also, I'm a comedian, and I'm pretty far into this shit, and it's not going, you know, exactly how I planned. So like, I don't really have a life for you to terrorize.
You
like,
have nothing to lose.
Yeah, like when most people are in these situations, the parts that's really traumatic is that oh my god, my kids are here, or like, you know, I don't know, they're gonna blackmail me or something. But like, I have no.
Where are your kids?
I don't care. That's the thing. I don't care.
He doesn't even care.
The FBI took them, man. I'm not. You can't move me. No, I don't have any kids. I don't have any pets. You know, I don't have
truth teller
secrets really. Like, I just don't. You can't fuck with me on a psychological level, really.
What were they saying right when they like came in?
So they were like, they started talking about the ice post thing, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I see what's going on. And a lot of people have sort of come at me, like not many, honestly, like 90% of people that are interacting with me about this just have my back on it. But, you know, there are a few takes on this that I don't entirely disagree with, which is that, like, you know, if you take this really seriously, you probably should just lawyer up and just plead the fifth, right? But I just, like, I don't really.
You did the opposite of that.
I didn't. A, I was not doing anything wrong. And B, I think that if I had resisted in that way, this might have gone worse. And I say that because I've been arrested a lot in my life and fucked with by the cops a lot. And when I was a kid growing up, you know, I used to mouth off to them, and it was just this thing where we would just, you know, it was like The Wire where they just fuck with those kids and they just have this relationship, you know? And when I got a little bit older, I started to take things more seriously because also, you know, all this police brutality stuff started to come out, and I started to change the way I interact. And I noticed that a lot of old white dudes have this ideology about it to where it's like you can show them the Bill of Rights and shit, and like, you know,
which you should have in your home.
Yeah, like you should carry a Constitution in your pocket and all this stuff, and that doesn't really work out.
Dennis Kucinich has always said you can get out of an ICE raid if you show them the Constitution you carry in your pocket.
So, like, I don't really think about these things in those terms at all, because the only people that believe that are people that actually works out for.
Right.
And so there's this saying that kind of makes sense to me, which is this idea that, like, the opinion you have of the police is directly correlated with the amount of interaction you've had with the police, and also, like, I think to some extent the way that you interact in these situations. I was a lot dumber when I was a kid because I didn't realize they might fucking kill you, you know? Or I just didn't care or something, I don't know. But so survival mode for me on some level was like, well, I gotta kind of cooperate. Like, I can't, you know, they're gonna fucking buck if I start going like, can I see a warrant, sir, or whatever. Right. Which is also something that you, like, I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that, though. You should probably ask for a warrant.
Did you show them your Hank Hill tattoo?
Well, I mean, they could see it, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt like there was a decision I had to make, right? It was either to go full like that or to do what I did. And I did what I did also because it caught me off guard because I was so jarred and so fucking hungover and just like, you know, what is going on here?
Can I ask, like, I feel like this would be very illuminating. Like, what was their tone when they were asking you about the tweet?
Okay. So it's really funny because there's two types of cops, right? There's
The good cop.
There's
The bad cop.
there's like grunts, like who are like these fucking aggro like steroid guys who do all the on the ground violence and throwing you in the ground and putting you in handcuffs and shit like that. And then there's like these detectives.
The kindergarten cop.
Uh-huh.
The second one.
I've had a lot of like traffic violations with that kind of cop. We're just like, you saw the sign. You want to die tonight?
So then there's also like nerds, right? Detectives. And this is like, I was looking at these people and I was like, oh, these people like are dorks. Like they probably watched The West Wing and got really into, this idea of working in, Homeland Security or whatever.
They're
being part of the feds,
gumshoes.
right? They didn't really appear like, I have no fucking idea. They didn't appear like poised to throw down. But they did come in with a bunch of fucking cameras and shit. And
Were they armed?
Were they with World Star?
I don't I don't know if they were armed. I don't remember like seeing a gun and freaking out or anything. So I think that they weren't.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure
You
though.
weren't also in like a particularly lucid state, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean I was like I'm going to talk my way out of this or I'm going to not. And I was also like if they already made up their mind. Like I'm either going to go to jail right now or I'm not. So I just kind of like was like, all right, let's do this. Let's talk about it. And so there's one main guy, and he's, he's sort of talking to me while the other three like run around the apartment and take pictures of everything, right? And sort of like poke through all this shit in my.
More mannequins back here. They're by the pentagram.
That was the funniest thing.
Pentagram's by the cross. What does that mean?
I was like, oh, they're trying to build a profile on me. And I kind of kept looking at him going, like, that's not my shit. Like, it's not, this isn't part of whatever manifesto you think I was writing. Like, it's not like this weird goth, new metal, anti-ice, like, fucking,
There's a menorah with a hat on it.
Yeah. And there's also this cross in my living room that somebody brought home, and it used to be upside down, like all metal, like the pentagram.
It's big,
here.
by the way. If you're listening, this is a 6-foot tall cross.
Yeah.
At least.
Bigger than
Ominously
that.
looming above you while you record your podcast.
And it's right side up because it used to be upside down. But then someone got so fucking high in here that they were like, what's more metal than an upside down cross? Turn it upside down again or something.
Right side up cross.
Yeah, so it just looks like we're Christians or something. It's really fucking weird. They took a picture of that and was like, wait a minute. It's like, if I'm going to go down, like at least get it right.
You're destroying my brand.
So, then I sat down and the main guy sat across from me. Oh, and he was like, he was like, can we sit down? And I was like, okay, sure. He goes, can we sit down, I guess, at this table? And I'm like, that sounds great. So we sat down at this table where we're recording this podcast.
Did
I
you
don't
boot
like
up
that.
the mics?
It
and,
still had the microphones up, but my computer was in another room. And so he goes like, are these microphones on? And I said, no. And then he believed me. And they weren't on, but like, what if they were? That's when I started to get this weird feeling of like, oh, you're not good at this. Like, I think this is kind of like...
I think he'd be able to tell if they were on, though. Like, it's not hooked up to anything.
It is hooked up to this input that even when it's not connected to the computer, these lights still blink.
Right.
Maybe it was because if he knew the mic was on, he would have become hilarious.
Right, yeah. Start,
If you get this guy near a mic.
do what you've been working on.
Yeah.
He has
As
like a
soon
much
as those
more
lights hit
blue
me.
sense of humor. Didn't realize we were dealing with a pussy. It's like how he starts talking to you. That'd be great.
Yeah, he's really into Howard Stern and shit.
How big are your tits? You are in serious trouble. How big are your tits?
So then we started to talk about all this shit, and he goes like, so we have to ask you, like, do you believe the things that you were writing about? And I told him, like, no, it was a joke, like, and I think that it was a joke because you clearly Googled me. Like, I don't know how you found my apartment.
The thing is, though,
I
even if
live in this strange place,
even if you did believe it, what crime are you falling under there? Like the being mean to cops clause?
Right. Well, I think so this is where all this free speech shit comes in because, like, with this other guy that got, thrown in jail for 5 months who was black. So, fucking.
His podcast equipment was running.
So, like, I mean, this is just America. Like, I'm not surprised. It sucks, but, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to go, oh, fuck, cops treat black people worse than fucking everyone.
That's the main difference.
Well, but also, what do you think of if you had not been a comedian and you had posted that?
I'm arguably not a comedian right now. I mean, I'm not working anywhere,
you
really.
Get to hide behind it was a joke defense, where some of the stuff he posted was more like, a little harder to tell if it was ironic or not when he was supporting. Not that he should or shouldn't support.
Okay, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And you're right that it doesn't make any sense, but I was also trying to get out of this not arrested. So
yes,
I started,
as am I.
I started
for the listener
doesn't even care about the revolution. Doesn't even care.
Right. We're apathetic, neutral parties to this.
Part of what was going on in my head in terms of survival was appealing to this guy's white guy mentality about shit. I'm serious. That's why I was like, I'm a comedian. That's a job, and a job
when Steely
means
Dan tweets a song.
So I started explaining this shit kind of in terms where he was going like, oh, that's a good point. And it was weird. I was like, what do you mean it's a good point? Then what the fuck are you doing here? So I told him, I'm a joke. I'm a comedian. My job to make jokes, and a joke is a work of fiction. If I had written a fucking novel about this, would you be here right now? And he started to go like, yeah, I could kind of see what, yeah, that makes sense.
So did these guys directly work for ICE? Like, who did they work for?
Department of Homeland Security.
Which ICE is under the umbrella of, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they're like a subdivision.
Yeah, from what I know, DHS started after 9/11.
It just sounds like
DHS
ICE
used to be,
rolled out.
ICE used to be called something else.
Water.
God damn it. It was
I'm so mad.
It changed. God, I can't remember when. I'll look it up. But it changed for a specifically political reason. It had to do with a lot of this, like, immigration resentment.
Right.
It just sounds like this guy doesn't know anything about the program.
So that is also really interesting because, and I won't ever really know what the answer to this is, but a lot of people. I say a lot of people, like 2 people, but I think this is a good point.
More than one.
Have reached out to me and said, you shouldn't have said anything to him because they play dumb in order to keep you talking, right? And that is a pretty good point because look
now
at
that
me.
you've said that, that does seem almost definitely like what happened.
I can't stop talking. I'm a fucking comedian.
No.
And I was hungover and he busted into my house and I was like, all right, well, I'll just use words to get myself
They're
out of
gonna
this.
find out all your high-level secrets.
But that's the other thing was like,
Emphasis on the high, right?
What if they learn about the shows at Alamo Draft House in the 2000s?
right. That's the other thing is that there's like, if I was like, oh my God, my entire fucking dreamer family is in the room next to me, like it would have been a different situation. But I'm in this fucking shithole in Bushwick with like, just weird drifters living here and shit, like I don't give a fuck. I got nothing to lose here, So, I did notice at one point he asked me a question that I caught because I have thought about these things. I've read about this and there's shit that was still scanning through my head where he said, well, okay, so do you is anyone actually like affected by ICE? And he baited me into going like, well, actually, sir, my mother is. But I went, no, let's just say no, like at all, because like if why would I say yes? Like why would
which is the honest, true answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Into these microphones, no one I know has ever been
Yes.
affected by it. Yeah.
If anything, they make your life better
The
on a day-to-day
DHS
basis.
fucking listening. No. I mean, the thing is, these problems affect people that like everyone knows. Like it's a widespread thing. But if they come fucking looking for you, you have to say no because otherwise, now that they're gonna keep poking around and try to find the fucking people, right? So. That is the only part of this that I kind of like think, oh, okay, if I could do this over again, I might do differently. Is just maybe I might not speak at all, right? But I just did what I did, and it happened.
And
but
you're
also
not in jail, so clearly something was.
yet, or who knows what the fuck, but probably not. I don't know.
Late night noticias.
Yeah. And that's another reason I've been talking to so many people about this and raising the profile on it is because if they do come fucking black bag me, like, well, there's a lot of people that are going to know where I was, you know? Then I was going to be like, oh, he had a one-nighter in Boston and never came back, you know? So
Did the grizzly bear.
oh, once you go there, you might as well get detained.
Yeah. Black bag my wife, please.
They actually have an open mic that is an ICE detainment facility. They have a sharing agreement.
You know,
Real estate.
statistically, someone in there is like, all right, I got an idea for a themed show. It's Abu Ghraib themed. You have to stand on top of this box. So, you know, they started asking me these things. I start going, you know, well, they start saying like, you have 10,000 followers. You know, don't you think this could be insightful? Like, what if the wrong person hears it and takes it literally? And I'm saying like, well, I know that you know this is a joke. I know that you know I'm a comedian, and this is kind of like just a fallacious argument. If you really thought this is true, you'd be kicking down Alex Jones's door. You'd be fucking with Roseanne Barr. You're not. And then he goes like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, again, and I can't tell if they're playing 4D chess, you know, if they're like trained to draw this information out of you that way, or if they're idiots. Because really, honestly, they seemed like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Right.
And
That's you falling for their trap.
right, it's like
Their
I don't.
fucking gumshoes, dog.
I really don't know. Like,
You're
I'll never
leaving
know.
gum all around the house for them to pick up later.
With
They
their
probably
shoes.
tapped
Could you
it,
arrest
right?
your friend?
What if they like what if this episode like got lost or something, but you found out they wiretapped the fucking place, and you're like, could I actually get that?
Yeah,
audio?
can you run this filter on it to keep Carlos from laughing too loud?
Has Carlos been laughing into your bug microphone?
There's like some fucking Homeland Security agent who's like outside in a van. Like, he's got his hands over his ears. Like, oh God! Oh Jesus Christ! What is wrong with this guy?
Just run a leveler app. It's not hard.
Yeah. So, you know, we sort of get into this conversation, and I'm like, you know, like, I just don't buy this. Like, this is an intimidation tactic. Like, no one else gets treated like this. Comedians, it's so subjective what's a joke and what's hate speech. But it's like, I've been thinking about Jeff Dunham a lot. He's got that, like, dead terrorist puppet,
Yeah.
which is, like,
Because he's a veteran.
insightful of violence on some level if you're going to apply the same rules to it, but it's a joke, you know? And he's the most successful comedian, like, of all time or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a dead terrorist. ICE is a fucking terrorist organization. Same joke, different puppet, you know? You know, this is just...
If only you had like Jeff's raw talent and charisma,
and good looks.
you'd be out of here.
God, I wish I was hot like Jeff Dunham.
I'd say pee on his puppet, but I think that's a war crime.
I like his old man puppet. He tells it how it is.
That's also why he's the most popular fucking comedian in the world, because
He has
fucking
range, right?
country's just full of people that are like, yeah, tell it like it is, old man puppet.
Get it, Jeff's other hand. Wait, so that's like pretty much the story, right?
No, so it goes on a little bit. So after the, you know, we kind of get through the free speech shit, you know, we just start talking about ICE, and he asks me at the end of it, he goes like, do you have any questions? I'm like, what do you, like, is this like a job interview? What do you mean? You know? So I go
If
like,
you want to work for ICE, you have to ask a question there. And then they come back and get you later.
so I go, well, like, yeah, of course, you know? And so I start talking to him about the ICE thing. And I go, you know, this is all here because I did express an opinion through a joke, which I think this thing is bad, you know? Oh, and he started asking, he was like, are you a direct action person? Do you believe in, like, you know, this fucking street war or whatever? And, like, whatever. Like, to him specifically, I'm like, no. Like, no, I'm not going to tell you that I believe in anything. But, like, I'm also trying to appeal to his dorky fucking wonky mind, you know? So I'm like, and this isn't entirely untrue, but I was like, yeah, I mean, look, I'm involved in like organizing and stuff on like a democratic level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I actually think.
Did he pull out like your Antifa mask and iron cuffs?
He just went like, okay, cool. Like he seemed confused, but he also seemed like he was trying to draw information out of me. You know? So I started describing shit in like a vague way, and he didn't really understand. But I kind of don't believe he didn't understand. And so, but he seemed like he was like, okay, you know, maybe we just needed to check and make sure this wasn't like the Unabomber or some shit. I don't know.
Unabomber, pretty funny. if you give him the floor for long enough.
So then he goes, what do you want to ask me? And so I asked him like what he really believes is the good work that ICE does, because I have all these conversations with cops, you know, when I'm out bartending and shit like that, and I have to work, and there's fucking NYPD guys coming in. I have to have this conversation. I meet them halfway. Their argument makes sense. Like, I believe that they believe it, but I don't think it's real. I don't think it's true. And the argument they put out is that, like, the police do good work, but they get, you know, the media smears them by using an outlier of only these bad incidents, right? That's not true, but on some level, the side of a cop's car says, like, to serve and protect, and then we see them killing somebody, and we go, okay, they had a mission statement that was on some level cool, and then everything went fucking haywire, right? That's kind of what a lot of people believe about the police. But I told him, like, okay, but I don't think this applies to ICE, like, really, because, you know, he's telling me, like, oh, they have 1 million interactions a day, and you only hear about the bad ones, right? But, you know, I was like, well, I don't think that their stated mission is good.
Right.
You miss all the families they bring
those happy
together.
People.
Right.
All those happy people who don't have to be with their families, who wanted it to happen.
Oh, it's all these fucking, like, Al Bundy dads that are just, like, crocodile tears, but inside they're like, hey, thanks, man.
Yeah.
You ever meet someone whose like house is too big and they're like, there's so much clutter around, and then they're thrown into like a cage out by the precinct, and it just feels like everything's neat for once, you know?
Yeah, man.
The sexual assaults are like really handy to have around.
Yeah, and so I sort of posed
Fuck
that to
these
him.
people. This is terrifying.
Yeah, and so I posed that to him, and I go, so what do you, like, defend ICE to me. Like, what is the good work that you think they do that's being distracted from, if this is your argument? And he goes like, well, they prevent a lot of sex trafficking and human trafficking, right? And it suddenly hit me as he was talking to me. I go, I fucking know this argument. It's the same bullshit they used to sell Sesta Fosta, which is, I talk about that all the time on this show, right? And then he's like, what's Sesta Fosta? And I'm like, you know, so I start explaining it to him, but then halfway through explaining to him, I'm like,
Sesta Fosta, is that an illegal immigrant?
why don't, is that somebody taking a siesta? Where is he? Let me get him, you know? But I started explaining it to him, and then I'm like, wait, why am I explaining this to the fucking Department of Homeland Security? You know, and I'm a fucking pizza guy, you know? So and then shortly after that, they left, right? And they started, like, told me, oh, good luck on your tour, and we'll be watching you, and we might come follow up with you, and, you know,
They do the thing where they point at their eyes, then they point at your eyes.
God, I wish they did all the movie shit. They were just fucking nerds, dude.
Fucking nothing now.
But I don't know. My takeaway from this is that I cannot tell whether, like, they were playing dumb to draw information out of me, or they were dumb because they seemed really dumb.
Well, they'd be dumb to be drawing information out of you because you have no information on anything.
I just
you
talked about
want.
the 5th Game of Thrones book for, like, a long time.
If you have any information, you tell it into a microphone every week.
Right.
Any chance you get.
Right.
Alyssa and I was walking over here with my fiance to go record this, and she's never seen Jake's apartment before, which is an abandoned factory building. And I was like, you know, these people from the Department of Homeland Security, like, saw this building and were like, yeah, we got the right place. It's fucking vampire house. The walls are falling apart, and there's children running around.
Yeah, but then they get in here, and it's the saddest podcast studio in the world. A guy who's too desperate to talk to them because he's so lonely, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's kind of the story. There's like a lot going on. I think it's really funny that it happened to me and not like a right-wing libertarian free speech dork comedian, because those are the guys that always imagine like the feds are going to bust
They
your
have
door
the plan.
and they're there to prevent you from saying your truths, but your truths are just like, we shouldn't have to pay taxes and I'm a white guy, I should be allowed to say the N-word and shit. It's like, you are.
Have you ever looked into the Fed?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? What's the pyramid mean?
Yeah, so free speech is really funny to me because free speech gets, branded as a right-wing thing a lot of the time. But, like, it's only a right-wing thing because they're fixated on it because they have this fantasy of it, like...
The free speech is the right of every American to say slurs. And that's given to us in the Constitution.
I mean, you really can, like, up until, I guess, this level or whatever. I didn't say a slur, but, like...
Yeah.
Most people don't
on
get in
the
trouble for
podcast.
shit.
You didn't say a slur.
This is where the slippery slope is. It's not on like
When gays
trans
get married.
bathrooms. Yeah, or when gays. It's shit that's dissenting against the government and dissenting against
That's it.
power structures.
Right.
And that's why I do think that leftists should oppose free speech laws or laws that prohibits free speech. Not because I believe in this like liberal idea of like an equal platform for everybody. Like clearly that doesn't exist, but the state always uses it to repress the left.
Let me ask Anders, who I feel like is the real star of this story. How are you feeling hearing Jake is being hunted down like a dog by the government? What were your feelings Sunday morning? Turn on your feed, seeing your friend has been trapped like a rat in his own hole.
I send him how you doing, buddy? Good little.
What are you afraid they're
was
going to
like-
find? You know?
What am I afraid they're gonna find? Any of the podcast episodes where I have a riff that doesn't quite,
Oh, wow.
Because then they're gonna be
The few and far between.
yeah,
Good luck to them.
right. Yeah, they're gonna have to get a fine tooth comb. And
My
find
first
one of
thought, my first thought upon hearing that you had to explain the DSA and Sesta Fosta to them is that there's a much looser net of surveillance than I originally thought, and that somebody's going to look at my Facebook profile and see that I've befriended 1,200 people from Pakistan as a joke, and then I will be on a CIA list like I thought I was already. I did a show for an eccentric billionaire at a pizza store where he was the only one there 2 years ago, and he recorded my set on his phone and he put it online, and every day since then I've been requested by 10 new Pakistanis.
Whoa.
And I accepted the first 1,000 to 1,200 of them because I thought it was so funny until I started running out of space. And one time I logged onto Facebook and I saw a family slaughter a goat on Facebook Live.
Holy shit, that rules.
They weren't Pakistani though, right?
They were Sadists.
There's like some overlap into
my
like
apartment.
other countries in the area, but it's mostly Pakistan. A lot of like
Goat.
the Indian Army is the ultimate war criminal links that I'm tagged in. Like I'm co-signing them.
So that it brings up another interesting point, which is that so they didn't take down these posts, right?
Right.
And
I just want them to know if they're listening that I don't know those people.
I kind of thought at first like, oh, somebody who doesn't like me fucking narked on me, and they did that swatting shit. But the more I think about it, whenever someone reports a post that you have, it gets taken down, and then your account gets like flagged or whatever, right?
You get Marsha Belskied.
You get Belskied.
You get
She's
Belskied.
getting some fucking shitty dude is the person that's like reporting everything she puts up, right? It could be like one person.
Right.
Or
It's Anders.
Yeah. Anders, we need to have a talk.
You hate women.
And that's the podcast. Okay, so because it didn't get flagged on either platform, I kind of think it might have come from the top, like all the way at the top. Like they might just have a fucking like just
Algorithm
from,
for ICE murder.
yeah, like a Google alert or something, which is weird because they responded within 24 hours. So like, if we're to understand that to be true, Department of Homeland Security is just a fucking bunch of guys running out and knocking down doors over like Facebook arguments
Yeah,
and shit.
It's
willy-nilly. Like so many people say so much horrible shit online all the time. There's no reasoning or way to parse it out,
I feel like they must be expecting more pushback on ICE than they're getting, maybe? and that's
Well,
part of
it's
why this
also
is a precautionary measure.
It's also this massive bureaucracy. Like, I remember a few years ago, there was a kid, like an 8-year-old boy in St. Paul, Minnesota, who was on the do not fly list. And he was white. He looked like blonde hair, blue eyes, Minnesota white.
Perfect
And he
boy.
just wound up on the list, and they didn't know why, but he couldn't fly anywhere, just because of some fucking typo or something.
Well,
But
he
it's-
probably said the N-word on Xbox Live. I don't know if you've been on there. Children are terrible. Yeah, so the bureaucracy thing, though, is kind of interesting because, like, I also got this feeling while this was happening that, like, these people, like, work for Trump, and I have no idea who they are, but they're professional type dorks, and I'm not really certain if I were to guess whether I would think that they maybe voted for him or not. But so it kind of seems like they're, sometimes the reason cops are so aggravated, I think, is because, like, they're the tools, right? They're just the implements of the law. And the law is bad, and everyone's mad at the law, and
Right.
they're
And
like,
they're like, "Eh,
"No,
don't
it's
blame
my
me."
job. I have
Yeah.
to defend my job," But like, we also can't. Like, it's weird to expect them to understand the law. So that's why it doesn't make sense as a job on some level or whatever. So
right.
like,
That's
I always
interesting
thought-
how there's a principle of ignorance of the law is not immunity from the law. That's applied to someone getting arrested, but there's
but
no
not to the
inverse of
fucking
that.
cop. Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is because, like, I was looking at these guys and I was like, is this just like some Coen Brothers fucking nightmare life you have where you have to go track down comedians and shit because we don't have, like, the background checks on the guns and shit. So, like, their course of action is just shooting in the fucking dark, like going around fucking with people like me who they think might be the next, like, whatever. You
Right,
know?
without background checks, we won't know if all these people buying guns are also comedians.
Well, I mean, the best place to hide from any notoriety is probably in the world of stand-up comedy.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
folks, tour dates coming up. I think that should wrap it up for this one, though.
Yeah, we're at about an hour.
Um,
Anything else you guys want to get into?
not really. I looked up some more stuff about ice, but I'd rather have like a guest who knows things on.
Yeah, we should do that.
I think that would make more sense
Melt
than me
it.
pretending
Melt
I'm the smart
ice.
guy. Melt ice. Okay, let me know if that pans out.
Yeah, we'll make a fucking a poster and we'll show up to something with.
Jake, do you have anything to plug?
Well, yeah, the fucking tour.
Besides you as a hero
Yeah.
of the 21st century.
Free speech warrior Jake Flores. I'll be traveling the world doing my free speech sessions. No Antifa allowed, by the way. In
Antifa thugs stay home.
yeah. Excuse me. I will be going on tour as I've probably beat to death doing all these interviews. I'll be going on tour in a week, so as this comes out, it'll be like in a week. With my pal Mishka Shubali, we're going to West Virginia. I'm going to Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, Oakville, Illinois, Kansas City, and I'll be doing a whole week in Denver. House shows, bar shows, all sort of shit. It's all in my pinned tweet. So go to my Twitter at Feral Jokes. Hit me up. A lot of them, you need an invite, just DM me or whatever, or look up the show on Facebook, and there'll be like information on a Facebook page. That's
out
it.
to-
It's good to be a fucking free man.
You're a lone wolf, and you're free. Anders, do you have any plugs? Do you want to plug Jake's tour?
Go to Jake's tour, unless you are in New York, in which case you can go to my show Dummy on the 19th, next Saturday.
It's really good.
That's right, and this one is gonna have some special guests. It's gonna be kind of a fun. I'm gonna be doing the whole show, but I also have some buddies. Buddy Alex Colliard in town from Chicago, very funny Ruben McCollister, Alexander Payne. Got some musicians playing. It's gonna be a lot of fun. The Music Inn in the West Village. Find it on Facebook. Dummy at the Music Inn with special guests.
Go watch Dummy. It's really good.
I'm going to do a good job at plugs for once because people are listening. If you've enjoyed this discussion and wish it had 100% more Goku, you might also enjoy my podcast where we trap people in a room, make them watch Dragon Ball Super, and then ask them how they feel about it. We've had Jake on. It's called Ballin' Out Super. I also have a weekly show every Sunday at Sing Sing on Avenue A and 5th. It's called Bad News. It's a comedy show. I dress up like a newsman. And then we have stand-up comedy. This week we have Mike Kaplan. And follow me on Twitter at Patak Jokes, where I'm trying so hard to be better at it. And those are my fucking plugs.
Oh, I have one more plug. I just got a recent write-up related to all of this in the New York Post, which is probably the achievement of my life. Conservative, wacko, fucking scatman, wordplay newspaper, the New York Post, did a story.
And they did nothing with the title.
They just copy-pasted the entire other story.
They
in the Splinter,
threw it away.
And then they had such an opportunity to riff New York Post-style puns on what happened to me, and it sucks. They just fucked it up.
What was JP's again?
JP's was Jake Ass as opposed to Jackass. Comedian cracks ice, ends up all wet. God. So if you got any those, just tweet them at me because pretty much all I'm going to be doing once I get all this fucking work done is coming up with New York Post titles about how I'm a jackass or a bozo. Yeah.
You're an angel in my eyes.
Yeah. Also, fuck, like, subscribe, all that shit, review. I think we might actually get a boost from this because of, like, Chapo and shit. So do me a favor, if you're down with the shit that we're doing, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/poddamnamerica. If you
really
subscribe, if we get enough, like, cash coming in, I mean, we're going to do it anyway, but, like, I think this might be an opportunity for us to be able to do a lot more shit. We're going to get, like, a lot more bonus episodes out and just bonus content. We're going to try to build, like, kind of a base for this. Because right now, we're making money, and I really appreciate everyone who's putting stuff in. But, it's just kind of like paying for the equipment and shit we need. But I want to do this, man. I want to make this fucking thing. So please support us if you can. If not, just keep listening. I mean, it's a fucking mostly free show, That's it. We good?
All right.
Seacrest out.
All right.
Let's play out to Garth Brooks.
And good night, Agent, whatever your name was. That'll always be the part that haunts me. Never got his name. Just remember those steely blue eyes. They're listening, is what I'm saying.
Good night, Jake.
Ah! All right.